Welcome to Garnish Your Growth with Neek
and Mont.
Hey! So today we are going to talk about transparency, and that, my friend, is the favorite topic for me to talk about because I love transparency. It makes me so happy.
Has it always made you happy?
No. No, not at all, but it does now because that's how I live my life, and I found that it makes things so much easier.
After it's harder.
After it's harder. I used to be a dirty liar face, and not like a truly dirty liar face. I'm not going to tell you how I really feel to save your feelings so that everything is smooth and I don't rock the boat kind of dirty liar face.
I think I know people do this, but I really strongly believe that women do this way more often than men.
Agreed.
Way more often.
Agreed. I think it also comes from like maybe some bad relationships or just bad people around you.
People pleasing.
People pleasing. I was a people pleaser. I think it's like ingrained in me to be that way. And I really had to take a step back and look at the mess that I had created by that. I feel like when you let everyone around you kind of think that you feel a certain way, you lose yourself completely. And your life is not as fulfilled or as amazing as it could be because you're not really living your truth at all.
But you've become normal. It's become your normal. You've normalized that addition of your life. And before you know it, it's just mundane, routine, one foot after another, and one lie turns into another thing and then another thing.
Yeah.
And before you know it, because you're not like lying about, there's lies, and then there's like, oh, I don't want her to be mad,
or like, are you hungry? No, not really.
No, I don't want to like put you behind.
No,
like,
really, I'm starving.
Hangry.
I'm hungry.
But you just don't say anything.
Yeah.
What do you think kind of tipped the scale and made you look at transparency? Like, what actually made you even look to see like transparency? I want to do something to change that.
I think it was working here.
Really?
Yeah. Seriously, I think it was working here, and I wanted to create new relationships with everyone that I worked with. And it just, when you are in a safe place to be yourself, and you see how good it feels to just be you and not lie, when someone truly asks you, like, hey, what is it that you want? Like, I don't think anyone had really asked me that before. And when I started thinking about what I wanted, I had to be honest with myself about what I wanted and what I wanted my life to look like. And once I started doing that, then it kind of like trickled into my relationships. Like, what do I want my relationships to look like? What are the relationships that make me the happiest? Like, how am I with that person? And it was honesty. It was just...
And probing questions
and
from me.
And probing questions, yes.
I have a way of being able to... I don't know if it's like a sixth sense or if I'm just ultra aware of feelings. I'm very like emotionally sensitive when it comes to people's feelings. I'm not empathetic, which I'm working on.
It's okay, I am, so there's balance.
There's balance, but I really do feel like I have a sensitivity to people's moods and like their energy, so very energy sensitive. And I can tell from a distance how that person's life is going in a nutshell. If I see you multiple days and kind of turns into weeks and months, it's really apparent what kind of life you're living. And I don't mean that in a judgmental way. I mean that in a, are you truly at peace? Yeah. Are you working towards that? Like, do you have calm, collected, amazing, beautiful, spirited energy? Or does it feel like every day is just like this, just strife and stress and strain, and you're kind of trapped in the life that you created, but you don't even see that there's a cage around you.
Yeah.
And when I first met Nico, when she first met me, I feel like we were both going through different things at different times. And just to give you guys a little bit of background, we are here in Raleigh, North Carolina. We are sitting inside of my studio right now. This is Garnish Hair Extension Studio. And one of the things that my company Garnish prides itself on is our culture. And inside of Garnish, culture is very important because it trickles down from what we are and who we are into our coworkers, into our guests, into how they receive the service. There's a Garnish experience inside of here. We only work with extension guests at this point inside of both of our careers. And every single day is a hair day for someone. This woman has been waiting months, weeks, a long ass time to come in here sometimes and have like the hair of her dreams. And a lot of that hair is connected to our self-identity. So if every day that we come in these doors, we're supposed to show up and work amongst each other and move around the cabin, you don't want to feel like you're tight, you're tense. Did you offend your coworker?
Yeah.
Somebody's in a mood. The break room becomes not just a room for breaks, but like a sweltering dungeon inside of some salons. They think I'm joking, but like
No, but for real.
everybody that does hair knows that the break room sometimes can turn into like
Dark clouds.
and like a festering pit. And where do you think that goes when it's just released into the air when somebody's trying to eat their lunch? Now all of a sudden they have
It's on me.
they have fumes in their lunch. So one of the things I wanted to do when I opened up my studio is to just make sure that I was mindful and very clear on what kind of energy I wanted in my space. And one of the biggest contributors to energy is transparency.
Agree.
And if you cannot be transparent inside of your working relationships with your coworkers, your guests, family, your friends, it almost starts to feel like you are carrying around little tiny burdens in a backpack.
Big burdens, because I don't think you realize how much energy it takes to hold on to all of that all the time.
It is stifling when you are far removed from it. When you start living your life in a very transparent way, the verbiage that you even use is so different.
I agree.
When you have a problem with something that somebody has done that has affected you, instead of just being in a mood, being disgruntled, not saying shit, and then just walking around with your ass tight and causing this like weird energy, instead of that, why don't you call them, text them like, hey, when you're free, I really need to talk to you about something. And being
and not about like this is what you did to me.
No.
But about like
I was going to say stating your intention.
Yeah, well, stating your intention, yes. And then also just like explaining how you feel, like your feelings that came from that. Not putting blame on anyone else, but just explaining like how it made you feel.
I think that's not a double-edged sword, but there's two different sides to that. There's how something made you feel, and then there's the action of said something.
Yeah.
So if Nico does something that really infuriates me, which by the way, weirdly enough, you've never done anything that has
like infuriate you?
No, like you've been kind of like irritating
it's
sometimes.
Because I'm transparent, right?
We're both transparent with one another. Like we're really transparent.
I'll eat her food, but then I'll tell her about it. So even if
right
she's
when
mad,
I'm hungry and I'm waiting to put it in my mouth and I see her mouth is like, I'm like,
she does it to me too, though.
Did you just eat my pizza? That's a different story for a different
okay,
day. That's a different story for a different day. But again, there's transparency around your feelings and then there's transparency around the actual thing that happened. So in being transparent, one of the things that we wanted to share with you is, what does that look like? Yeah. Why is a transparent conversation about something that could be tough different than you just having a conversation about it?
Yeah. One, transparency to me means owning all your own stuff, right? There are things about me I know about myself. Like, I own them. It is what it is. My past, my present, like I am who I am, and I am completely okay with that. I think that takes a lot of maturity and growth. It took me a while to get here. But because of that, I don't feel like I'm hiding anything.
Being accountable for one's self.
Being accountable for oneself is super important. I learned that from Garrett, Motley's mentor. He basically said if you're walking into a room with a bunch of secrets and a bunch of things you're hiding from people, you basically are carrying a big bag on your back. And you're so terrified of someone figuring out who you really are that you can't just like live. And that blew my mind. And it made me think, like, let me just own who I am. So I started doing that. And with that, I was able to show up just as me. I'm not hiding anything. I don't have anything to worry about. And then when something happens, I'm not really scared to be like, hey, dude, I didn't like that. Like,
and it's uncomfortable.
It's so uncomfortable.
It's very uncomfortable. It's awkward. I hate to be awkward. I hate awkwardness. I mean, I think there's a cuteness in some awkwardness. But like beyond that, beyond the cute awkward of like, I don't know what to do with my hands. Beyond that, ew. Yeah. For me, that's one of the things that makes me kind of feel like I don't really know what to do, which makes me feel uncomfortable. But you just have to bite
bite the bullet.
Bite the bullet and, like,
and
just get through it.
say things like that. Like, that's setting an intention when you're talking to someone. Like, hey, this feels really awkward. Like, I don't know what to do with my hands right now, but I really need to talk to you.
Because what I want from this conversation is for me and you to be on the same page when we're done, so that we can move forward and X.
Right.
Like, stating your intention inside of being transparent, for me, doesn't make the moment any easier, but it does let the other person know that your intentions are good. How many conversations have been completely fucked up because the intention of the conversation goes left?
Yeah.
Like, that's a normal conversation where it goes left. You start to point fingers. There starts to become blame. People get furious. And I think that can all happen inside of transparency. But if you mix transparency with, or you sprinkle, like, setting the intention on top of your transparency, and then just stating what you really, like, what you really want out of the situation, but also, like, what kind of, like, peeved you first. Do it instinctively. Like, when it becomes an instinct or an instinctual habit that
It's instinctual.
is instinctual a real word?
I like it if it is.
Anyway, if it becomes something that you do on the norm, I like instinctual better, actually.
Run it back.
Then what ends up happening is that there's nothing to build on. As soon as something kind of pops up, you cut it.
Yeah.
And right then it's back to ground zero, neutral. It doesn't have the ability to grow and to fester and to start turning into resentment, to start turning into, like, bad blood, to start turning into something that's negative. As soon as it starts to rear its ugly head, you're like, you know what, that doesn't belong here. Let me do what I need to do right now to cut it back down. It's never any easier to have these types of conversations when they explode, and they always explode.
Yeah. And I think that if you are surrounded by people who love and appreciate you, and you have a good circle around you, when you have these conversations, they're always appreciated. Like, I've never talked to someone and then been like, man, like, fuck you, why are you telling me this? Do you know what I mean? And if someone does do that, they're not meant to be, like, in your life. They need to go.
Because this is Garnish Your Growth, one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about transparency is because I truly believe that if you are not transparent, you are going to stunt your own growth.
Ooh.
There are so many opportunities that come. There are so many ships that are going to sail in your direction. But if you're not transparent and real with yourself and real with those around you about how you feel, yes, your opportunity might come, but because you don't know how to speak up, because you didn't really take the approach of, ugh, she gave me this opportunity, but I don't want it. Or this, you know, happened for me over here and I'm really excited about it, but I wish I could have been doing this over here instead. Just because an opportunity comes doesn't necessarily mean that's the opportunity you should jump on. And if the person is real with you and you're real with them, then beautiful things can happen from that.
Agreed. I think so many doors will open for you if you're true to yourself.
Definitely.
First and foremost.
When we transitioned our studio into extensions exclusively, one of the things that happened is that Nico and I had a real conversation about what this would look like, what would be entailed, like what would her path and career look like if she ended up staying, because I gave every single stylist in the studio a way out to be able to spread their wings, fly, take their clients with them. There was no harm, no foul. There was non-compete because we were only exclusively going to be working with our extension guests. Nico and I had several sit downs that were super uncomfortable. One could even call them awkward. But at the same time, here we are sitting talking to you about being transparent inside of, I'm the owner of the studio. This is my lead stylist. So she works inside of my studio. We're also really good friends. And there's a lot of potential for there to be an explosion. But because both of us showed up to each one of those conversations fully transparent with the other one, we can sit here with pride and dignity and grace and just full transparency with you and tell you that it works.
Yeah, it really does. I think my greatest relationships are those that I can just be completely honest with those people about good things, bad things, and everything in between. And it really has taught me that that's how every relationship in my life should look like. Trickling that into, like, work too, you know? Honesty.
So we hope that you have gained a lot of value, or even a little bit of value. Even a little bit will move you forward when it comes to transparency. Try it on. The next thing that pops up, really take a second to just think, how can I be transparent in this moment? How is this going to benefit me? And then just try it on for size. It's a lot easier than you might think.
Yeah.
So for Garnish Your Growth and Garnish Extension Studio, we are out. I am Mott.
And Neek.
And we thank you for tuning in.